The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
The mind of Pat Popolizio is a wondrous thing. And for you Pac wrestling fans, you'll get to go inside the mind of the Skip each and every episode here on the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Now, here's your host, NC State Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt.
Welcome to this brand new episode of the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. I'm your host, NC State's Director of Athletics Digital Communications, Brian Reinhardt. And back live in the studio is the head coach of the Wolfpack, Pat Popolizio.
Brian, good to be back. It's been a while. Looking forward to this episode.
Me and Nick, we kind of called you out a little bit, but, you know, we're not going to dwell on what you were doing, but it's been a busy last month for you, running the Wolfpack wrestling camp on the road, running other clinics, and, of course, hitting that recruiting trail. So moving forward, what's the next month of your schedule look like? Yeah,
it's going to be a pretty busy month with a little bit of downtime. August is kind of one of those where we get to regroup. Obviously, recruiting will continue to go as normal. Going down the coaches convention, that'll be down in Daytona, so we'll spend a few days down there. Got a couple clinics lined up still, be on the road, and then, you know, right before school starts, probably get 3 or 4 days to kind of regroup myself, which is well needed, and our staff. And then we get to start the year off with all these guys back in swing. Got a great schedule lined up for them, and it's been a great summer having the whole team here training.
And in our last episode of this podcast, we landed a huge get and had former Wolfpack national champion Nick Gwiazdowski in studio for a great catch-up about all of his ventures around the world while being a member of the U.S. World Team. Pat, you've known Nick since before he was even in high school. How much pride do you take in seeing him progress now on the international level?
Yeah, that guy is as busy as can be. You know, lucky every now and then to get lunch with that guy if he can find time for us when he's in Raleigh.
Who pays?
That's right. Well, you know how he is. We got to work on that with him a little bit, but it's all good. No, it's been great to be a part of his, watching his success develop. Not surprised at all by the things he's been able to accomplish with his commitment and the drive that he's had. And, you know, he's one of those that now is a true professional in this sport, knows what he needs to do, and is working extremely hard. Got to spend, you know, I think it was close to 10 days or so in Colorado Springs with some Wolfpack members, some RTC guys were out there training, and Obi was out there with them. So it's been a busy summer for everybody, and those guys got the benefit being there with the national team. And Nick's just landed probably in Turkey right now, getting ready to wrestle in a tournament over there. So the guy's getting world-class experience. He's got a lot of frequent flyer miles now, so if anybody needs them, I'm sure he'll donate them to certain people. You know, maybe you can hit him up, Brian. We can get you on vacation.
I hit him up to sponsor the podcast. He told me to keep waiting for his check to roll in.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure that those bonus checks don't get cashed then.
But if you have not listened to our last episode with Nick Gwiazdowski, please go back into our archives. Nick has a unique sense of humor and never dodges any questions. And speaking of those archives, please go in and subscribe to the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. Any place you get your favorite podcast, we love to see our numbers continue to grow on such platforms as iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Music Play, and that's just to name a few. So in our last episode, Pat, you weren't here. I hope you went back and listened yourself.
I listened to them all. The voice. Why would I ever skip over the Voice of the Pack podcast?
Now that we got it on your phone.
Yours truly.
But our last episode, we broke new ground here at the Pac Mentality Pop-Ins podcast. We had our very first sponsored segment. Earlier this summer, one of our listeners made a very generous donation to this podcast, which we were very, very thankful for. And Pat, I know I was excited by the donation for this podcast from that listener who wanted to stay anonymous. It made me feel like we're doing a lot of unique content and looking into our program behind the scenes here. But running a program like you do, I don't think a lot of people realize how you and the Wolfpack RTC utilize donations. Can you give us an inside look at that?
Yeah, that first of all, thank you to the anonymous donor. It's having a major impact. It'll obviously keep this going for another year. I want to get a commitment out of you right now for the next year.
I have not re-upped yet.
All right.
Negotiating.
All right. So you're going to hold out on me. All these resources go into play. And if you look right now where we're at with the guys that are here training, it's been a valuable part of the success that we've been able to implement into this program, keeping these guys here. And basically, anybody that comes to NC State, graduates, and wants to move on and wrestle freestyle or Greco, we're going to be able to do that. And it comes from the people back in our RTC, and we've been fortunate enough to have some, guys that put us in position to keep all these guys training here right now. And we're going to see more and more of that. And these guys are doing their part to make sure that they can compete at the national and world level. And I think, putting 4 guys on national teams and world teams right now has been the key, and it's starting to show.
We dubbed our new sponsor segment Hidden Heroes, and throughout our next few episodes, our listeners will be meeting those involved with the Wolfpack program in those behind-the-scenes roles. In this episode's Hidden Heroes segment, we meet former NC State wrestler and current sport administrator Josh Dalton, and I will also share some info on how you can make a donation to this podcast and to the wrestling program a bit later. But, Pat, first, Hidden Hero, we hit up our athletic trainer, Will Conlon. Will's unique. He's got that tough job. Sportsman, athletic trainer. Some say head cheerleader during duels, but can you just
we put him as assistant coach.
He gets into it.
Yep.
Can you speak to the role Will plays with your squad and the job sports medicine does overall?
Altogether, the department in general does a phenomenal job with all sports. We're fortunate enough to have Will day to day. Rob Murphy does a great job working with our guys as well. But, Will's in the grind with us. One thing you don't realize, anytime we're practicing, Will's there. And I don't think people understand that, behind the scenes, if we're running or lifting, drilling at 6 a.m, he's there with us. So he's along with every workout that we're doing. I think it's a very valuable position to key to success with our program because, a trainer a lot of times keeps guys in check and keeps guys healthy. You're always going to be banged up in the sport if you're training hard. So having a trainer that knows how to keep these guys feeling good and, dealing with injuries and getting them back healthy as fast as possible, but doing it the right way and at the end of the day, putting their health out first and making sure that they're doing all the right things to put these guys in a safe position. And Will's done an unbelievable job with that. He's you can see his passion when we're out there competing. We're still working on his dress skills a little bit, but we've definitely upgraded quite a bit on some of the shoes that he's been wearing and the belt buckles and things like that. But he's come a long way since 5 or 6 years ago.
I'll tell you, the Wolfpack coaching staff, you guys like to step up your game, but I got to tell you, everybody that I interviewed who is now going to be on the bench, Kevin Jack, Tommy Grant, Nick Wisdowski, they have said that they have passed the coaches by in dress. Is that true?
Absolutely not. First of all, they haven't seen a seamstress, so we'll start there.
The taping of this episode could not have come at a better time, as you guys just announced that the Wolfpack Wrestling Club will host its first ever Golfing with the Wolves Golf Classic, which will be held on Friday, September 7th, the day before the Georgia State football game. Pat, can you tell us about the event and the purpose of putting it together?
Yeah, this is going to be a great first annual golf outing. Our alumni that are here in Raleigh have worked extremely hard to put this together. I met with them last night and very detailed on top of everything. And this will have a major impact, on the resources we're able to keep getting and implement them into our RTC. So it's going to be a great event, and we're working extremely hard right now. I think we have 5 former NCAA champs that are committed to being at this event. Caldwell said he'd be coming. We're going to confirm everything, but he said on Twitter yesterday that he would show up, be here. Turner will be here. Scott Turner, NCAA champ, outstanding wrestler. Matt Reese, and then obviously Mock and Nick will both be here training. And I don't know if they'll be able to golf. We're going to check their skills a little bit. Mock might be a little too stiff for golfing, but we'll see.
As I was going to say, it sounds like a great event, and we're going to touch on it more as we get closer. But for more information on the event and how to register to both play golf or if you just want to be a sponsor, please visit wolfpackrtc.com. And just another great segue for our next topic. As former alums will be coming back into town for that golf outing and football game, your current team is actually leaving town as the summer school session is coming to an end. There were a lot of guys here during the summer, including a lot of your newcomers. And speaking of those newcomers, how was their summer and work in the practice room?
A great time for these guys to be here, get acclimated with campus academics. That's obviously what we bring them in here for, is to get them some classes under their belt, understand the system, so we don't have to rush into things when campus gets a little busy. It's funny you bring this up because I was just talking to our staff this morning about it. Yesterday, I was looking around the room as we're drilling, and it's like we don't miss a beat. We lost a lot of senior level guys that moved on, but then you see these freshmen now that have been here for 5 weeks, and their technique and skill level coming in is at pretty high level. So some of the stuff that we've been implementing, they're picking it up really fast, and our room looks just like it did when we left off in February, March, when we were, some guys that have that experience 5 years in here. We're not missing a beat, and some of these guys are going to be ready right away, and we got some tough decisions to make on who we decide to wrestle this year.
Sounds like a tease about red shirts, lineups. We're coming with that info. We will get there.
Yep.
But in this episode of the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast, we once again have two guests, and I'm just crushing it and booking talent lately for the podcast. But up first, he was the talk of the NCAA's championships with a tremendous run to a third-place finish. Tariq Wilson will be our featured guest. Pat, you've seen Tariq grow since he's arrived on campus and moving forward. What do you see from him now that everybody is aware of what he can do on the mat?
Yeah, he's one of those guys that likes to put on a show. And I think when the lights are on, he can perform, and that's what I like about him. He's risen to the occasion. When we with the national tournament, obviously he wrestled his best all year. So I think the bigger the stage, the better he'll wrestle. And there's a target on his back now, and how you perform with that. We've gone through some of those growing pains with other guys, and it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that. But he's got the right personality and demeanor to deal with all those little things that are going to be thrown at him this year. And he's improved a lot, which is dangerous. In our room, watching him wrestle now, he's wrestling with a lot of confidence, and and as he should, because he's that good. But he's developed a lot more offense that he already had, and is dangerous. His defense is as good as it gets. And then bottom. We've worked all summer on some bottom, and I think that's going to be the difference next year, and him coming through and finishing where he wants to be. But it's going to be fun and exciting to watch him compete and having him in our lineup for the next 3 years.
In addition to hearing from Tariq, in our brand new sponsored Hidden Hero segment, we will meet the sport administrator for wrestling, Josh Dalton. Pat, last season was your first season working with Josh, and I joked with him and said, wow, 4th place finish in your first year. That's setting the bar pretty high. But from a head coach's perspective, what role does the sport administrator play in the Wolfpack program? Yeah, and
that's a big position. And I think the more experience you get in coaching, you realize how important those positions are. I've been very fortunate here, not only here at NC State, but even at Binghamton prior to here, have great administrators and people that understand what it takes to be successful, and are more there to help and guide you and also protect you at the same time. So there's a lot that goes into it. And, Sherrod Clinkscales, when I first got here, was a huge help, brought me in along with Dr. Yao, and then, mentored me through my first couple years here and understanding NC State and how things work. And then got a chance to work with Raymond for a year. And he was great to have, Raymond Harrison. And then they made that transition and said, hey, Josh is going to take over wrestling. And I thought it was a perfect storm coming together because he's wrestled here at NC State, knows the landscape of the sport, and is still, he's getting valuable experience at the same time. So together we're growing and learning. And he's been a huge help administratively, doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes and connecting dots for us. And, at the end of the day, it's a working relationship to continue to grow and get to that next level. And wouldn't ask for another administrator. He's as good as they come. And personality-wise, I think he meshes very well with our coaching staff, and probably more so myself. He's got a lot of patience, so I respect him for that. Being able to deal with myself and the rest of the staff is really good.
In this episode's Hidden Heroes segment, we are joined by the sport administrator here at NC State for the wrestling program, a two-time NC State alum, Josh Dalton. Josh, thanks for joining us on the vastly popular Hidden Heroes segment.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I'm excited to be here.
And I just want to remind everybody that through the recent generous donation of an anonymous donor, our listeners are getting to hear from some of the behind-the-scenes people involved with Wolfpack Wrestling. This week's segment's a first, as Josh not only earned 2 degrees here at NC State, but he himself was actually a former member of the wrestling team a few years back. And Josh, you grew up in local Apex, won a 2005 state championship as a senior at East Wake High School, and was nationally ranked coming out of high school. What made you decide to stay home and come to NC State to wrestle?
Well, my senior year of high school, I was exploring a few different options, all of which were local here in North Carolina. I was looking seriously at NC State, UNC Greensboro, and Duke. I went on a few recruiting trips. At the end of the day, it was between NC State and UNC Greensboro. And, my wrestling coach at the time, Tom Best, he was friends with Bob Guzzo. And, I just talked with him about it and talked with my family and decided that I wanted to stay local here in Raleigh and made the decision that I certainly don't regret. I think it's one of the best choices I ever made.
And I had to search back through the record books a little bit, but my astute research came to the conclusion that technically you're NC State's all-time win-loss percentage leader. Now, we're going to joke. Granted, you finished your career 1-0, but why did your wrestling career come to an end after a couple of seasons with the Wolfpack?
Well, during my third year, I started having some back issues and injuries, and the following summer, I started working an internship at B-Tech on NC State's campus. It's a biomanufacturing training and education center. And they told me that if I wanted to continue to work throughout the school year, I was welcome to do so. And, evaluating where I was in my wrestling career and where I wanted to go professionally with my career, I opted to stop wrestling and just continue to work in biomanufacturing on campus.
So you stopped wrestling and really focus on academics. You've actually have 2 degrees from NC State. What are your 2 degrees that you've earned here?
Sure. My undergraduate degree was biological sciences. And then I ended up coming back for my master's. It's a master's of business. I came back for my MBA and completed that a couple of years ago.
And you got your MBA through NC State's online program, actually. So how much different was it getting a degree online compared to going to classes and doing the usual undergrad route?
The online program really allows for flexibility. I was able to work full-time and then do my classes in the evenings and on the weekends. You can really manage your own schedule and when you watch your lectures and when you do your homework and manage it week to week that way online. So online really has a lot of benefits.
And we're going to get to your role as some of the duties that you have as the sport administrator for wrestling in a second. But beyond that, here at NC State, your job title is Director of Analytics and Internal Operations. Can you give our listeners a little description or maybe day-to-day duties of what that entails away from the wrestling program?
Sure. I do a number of administrative tasks. I'm more focused on the internal side of things. A number of those tasks are analytics-based, so I do a lot of data gathering. I compare us to other schools in the ACC and other schools in the Power 5. I assist with our annual reports and tracking on our strategic goals, so our competitive outcomes, our academic outcomes. I assist with summer school, and as far as the financial aspect of that, and coordinate a number of other initiatives that we're working on and work with various departments.
And as I mentioned, this past season was your first as the sport administrator for wrestling. It just so happens the Pack finished an all-time best 4th place at the NCAA, so I guess that's one heck of a way to start your career. But as the sport administrator, what is your role with the wrestling team?
So I really walked into a good situation. Pat and his staff make my job simple. And, as a former wrestler, being able to oversee the wrestling program here at NC State, it's opportunity is really special for me. But Pat, he obviously embraces the goal of winning a national championship at state. And, his commitment to this goal is really firm and unwavering. As a sport administrator, I'll start off with my philosophy. So I really believe in servant leadership, and that's just enabling others to become as effective as they can be. So I just see myself as an enabler. I try to be there for Pat, and you've heard of ladder climbers. I try and be a ladder builder and just help him do his job as well as he can. So I make it a priority to really be accessible and collaborate with Pat. We typically meet each week to ensure that all important topics are communicated. In my role, I work with Pat. We talk about his goals. We'll do a initial PRD to start off the year, and that's the performance review and development, where we include like his competitive goals for the year, the academic goals, and then go into recruiting goals. And otherwise, I collaborate with the other support areas that support wrestling. We obviously have great internal and external operations staffs. And since I'm here with our communications director, certainly give a shout out to him and the excellent job that he's doing.
Great communication staff here at NC State.
Hey, and the support that we have, it obviously can be seen. We led the ACC in attendance. We were ranked 12th nationally this year. We averaged nearly 2,000 fans per dual match this season, which was an NCSU record. I work with Pat as far as compliance. We maintain a focus on compliance, and the wrestling staff are in constant contact with our compliance representative. They ask questions and seek clarifications to ensure that they're doing their job correctly.
So I think, or you tell me, what you can share. What are some of the issues an administrator you're faced with both in the off season and during the season for wrestling?
So I'll say oftentimes it's, kids getting here and their financial aid. So we want to make sure that their scholarship is on track or their financial aid is where it needs to be. So just getting all the paperwork in. Oftentimes it's getting approval for certain things to occur.
I was going to say getting approval. One of the best things that popped up just during the season, very last minute, UNC duel, raised Matt up on a stage. That had to be an exciting time. That's the first time in ACC history that happened. First time for us. Fans loved it. And moving forward, we might be trying to do that every year now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we want to be the best. Obviously, at NCAA's, the way the championships wrestled is on an elevated stage. And other schools that are elite in wrestling are, they wrestle on stages. So we consider ourselves up there with them, and we want to kind of take some of their practices and implement it, and we were able to do so. We found a couple groups that have stages. We worked with our game operations staff, and our game ops staffs did a great job of helping us make that happen.
And one thing I'm always interested in, I'm a big numbers guy. So when it comes to the team budget, how does that process even start? And I think a lot of people don't realize a lot of these line items, they're set almost a year in advance that people might not realize. So what are some of the stuff you deal with the budget that people might not understand?
Well, I mean, the budget, just like any other budget, it requires planning and projections. So we have a number of line items that we just try and plan and estimate ahead of time and figure out where do we project that we're going to spend in different areas. It could be travel. It could be our recruiting expenses. It could be capital project updates, such as graphics, new wrestling mats, sports equipment, even our Adidas allotment budget. So we have our Adidas gear ready for the new groups when they get here, so they're ready to roll.
And you kind of mentioned it, speaking of new graphics, I've gotten many requests for pictures from you this summer, and we are redoing so many of the graphics in the practice room over there. How exciting is that of a process? And it has really turned out really great with some of the new graphics that have gone up over the summer.
It's really fun projects to work on. I enjoy working with our graphics team on making some of the designs. And ultimately, it comes down to the success we had last year. You know, we have a national champions wall. So with our national champion, we had to update that wall. We had 4 All-Americans within the wrestling room. All the All-Americans are pictured. So we had to update the All-Americans wall within the wrestling room and get pictures of those individuals. And then we also have stat boards that have a number of different stats, whether it be All-Americans, ACC champs, academic All-Americans. So with all the success we had last year, we had a lot of great updates to do.
And I'll get you out of here on this. When people ask me, I always say the staff and both past and present student athletes here with the wrestling team are great to work with myself. When it comes to media interviews and all the requirements I ask of them, in your role, how fulfilling is it to work with both these coaches and the wrestlers themselves?
It's really fulfilling. I really enjoy it. Honestly, I have the dream job working with the team. It's a great opportunity for me that I enjoy, getting to be a part of the process, seeing these student athletes really grow into young men and great professionals, not only improving at their craft, but growing academically and then also growing to become, great young professionals.
Josh, it was great to hear from you in our Hidden Heroes segment. Thanks for answering some of these tough questions and just letting us know what you do behind the scenes and how you're involved with the wrestling program.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you once again to our anonymous donor in sponsoring our Hidden Heroes segment. This has been a tremendous addition to the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast, giving our fans a chance to understand just how many different people have roles in supporting the Wolfpack Wrestling program. If you would like to donate anything to this podcast, please reach out to us on Twitter or email me directly. I love to correspond with our fans, and with our next donation, I look forward to seeing what ideas that individual will have as I will incorporate your gift into this podcast. You can reach both Pat and myself on Twitter at PackWrestle, and my email is bcreinha@ncsu.edu. We are now joined on the Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast by 2018 All-American Tariq Wilson. Tariq, we should have had you on the podcast months ago, but we finally booked you for this interview. So thanks for stopping by to catch us up on what was one of the most exciting seasons a Wolfpack wrestler had this past year.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I felt a little left out, but then I was like, he's been busy. A lot of things going on here at NC State, so I didn't mind. So when you called and said, I want you here on the podcast, so I had to come here, and I felt thankful.
Now, I will say I was busy, but you also booked yourself another podcast set without me knowing that. So, you didn't come to our podcast first. Maybe I had a little bit of a grudge out there.
Maybe, hopefully, not that too bad of one.
The NCAA tournament was all the way back in March, and we're here in the middle of July. Has everything died down for you finally with social media and just the excitement of that weekend?
Yeah, it definitely has. I still get followers on Instagram here and there. People message me, saying that they're excited for the next 3 years. I'm one of their favorite wrestlers. I had a great tournament. If they can add me on the other social medias I have. So everything has recently dialed down. I've just getting back to being a average kid, does wrestling at a D1 college, and who just likes to have fun.
Did the change of your Twitter handle increase your followers? And who gets credit for the new name on Twitter?
So there's a story behind that Twitter handle. For right now, I'll say Melissa Simmons. She gets credit.
I was going to say, I hope you would say her because she claims credit.
Yeah, she did. But back in high school, if no one like really knows this, only like a few people, back in high school, they used to call me Tariq the Freak. And I kept that out. I didn't I didn't want that name come following me here to NC State. So I was like, all right, no one's gonna know about it. And then all of a sudden it follows me with Melissa saying Tariq is freaking Wilson, he's freaking awesome. I was like, oh, well, I'm back.
That's a good name to have. People have picked up on it. Will it change back?
No,
Okay.
I'm keeping it.
Well, we have a ton to cover. Your redshirt freshman season, the great run to third place at the NCAAs, your freestyle this summer and coming back from an injury. But I want to start out hearing about your journey to NC State. You're from Steubenville, Ohio. You're a nationally ranked recruit, former Flow National All-American. Looking back, how would you describe the recruiting process overall for somebody that has not gone through it?
It's a great experience. You get to go to a college that you prefer, for one, and then you get to see the campus, see what you like about it, meet some of the teammates, seem to get a connection right off the bat, and then you just get to have fun, spend some time to get to know some of the people that you might look up to. Especially when I came down to NC State, I was joined with the class of Hayden. I had the bowlers with me, and a lot of other guys. So when we went, we had fun. Really connected with the guys. Thought it was a great experience overall. Made a connection with Obi, Pat, Frank when he was here. Like it was a lot of just fun, a lot of connecting. I just felt at home.
Who was your host on your official visit?
On my official visit, I would have to say Thomas Gant, but Michael Boykin was in there too. So I went back and forth with those two guys. Good
host, bad host. Were you there first? Were you there last?
I was not their last, but they were an average host.
Average.
It wasn't. They didn't treat me bad or anything like that. It was good.
So now, when you're going to be the host, you learn from their mistakes. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely learned from their mistakes.
What was your favorite part of the recruiting process? And maybe on the reverse of that, what was your least favorite aspect of it? Not just here at NC State, but overall.
Oh, the favorite part I would have to say is definitely just getting to know, like, talking with the coaches, getting to know them. Even though they're talking business, like, some of them will talk, see how you're doing out of wrestling, outside of just your life in general. Also, have to say, just meeting the team, hanging out with them. That is important, because that's, if you're going to commit to a school, those are your teammates for the next 4 or 5 years. Like, you want to build a connection, and we definitely had fun. We did, I think, paintball. I think we did another activity as a team, so it was great. We sat down, had pizza, so everyone relaxed and talked. And
when did you commit to NC State, and what kind of sealed the deal for you to commit here for both your education and wrestling career?
I think I committed, I think it was December, sometime January of my senior year. And I would have to say just the overall aspect. I love the college. It's a great campus, beautiful campus. Also, the weather here is 10 times better than the one in Ohio.
So you're saying Ohio winters maybe not so great?
Oh no, it's horrible. It is horrible. I like being hot. I like feeling the good atmosphere down here. In Ohio, the weather changes from cold, hot, warm, windy. You just never know. So
you came in for the 2016-17 season and redshirted your first year. How far in advance was the redshirt planned, and how did it benefit you?
We as a whole, the coaches and I, talked about redshirting my freshman year. And that year I learned a lot. The coaches also learned a lot. They learned that coming out of high school, I had the mentality block. I would always have sometimes in matches that my mind would just lose myself after I getting taken down, or after a loss, I have a hard time refocusing. So they really helped me out during that freshman year, learning how to refocus, get your mind set. Like, don't worry about it. You're still in the match. Just chip away at points. And also, they learned a lot about my wrestling style. So they helped me improve during this season, during the end of last season, of how my wrestling style and how they can help me out and increase my technique or better my technique.
To say this past season was a breakout for you would be an understatement. Going all the way back to the preseason, you actually lost a wrestle-off for the starting spot at 133. Pat always talks about pack mentality. What was your approach in the early part of the season to try to crack the lineup?
It was this is just a loss. This is just a learning. Not to take it to heart. Jamel, he's a great competitor. So if he beats me, he beats me. But I don't want to hold down like, oh, he beat me, I'm out of it. I can't do this, I can't do that. Just refocus, and maybe my time will come. They'll throw me in, and the coaches will realize that I'm the guy for the spot, and I just continue to wrestle, and that's what they ultimately did.
And you were inserted into the lineup in December, started the last 10 duels of the season, including the Pack's trip to Italy versus Oklahoma State. I always like to ask different guys to describe that trip to Italy and how fun it was.
That trip was a testament. There was a lot of adversity we did have to face.
Pat loves for you guys to face adversity.
Yes, he does. That's his main goal, to see who he can break, see who he can get to, but he cannot get to me.
He didn't get you on the Italy trip?
No. Overall, we had a fun time. We hiked the volcano, something I've never done before. We went to a European soccer game, something I've never really gone to a soccer game in general, besides the one that we have at NC State. But that big of one, feeling the atmosphere, the fans really got into it, seeing how they separate the rival team from the home team. It's just a great experience. The food, love the food. Definitely love the pasta they had. The pizza, it's the best thing that I've ate ever on a trip.
Did you eat before the duel, or did you have to wait till after the duel, after cutting weight?
We would have good meals. I definitely ate during and before the duel, and then after the duel, I had to keep in mind that we do have wrestling, another tournament coming up. But I did enjoy myself.
Okay.
I did enjoy myself.
And I have a feeling we're going to talk about a few signature wins of yours from the last year, but in the duel versus Virginia, you defeated returning All-American Jack Mueller and earned ACC Wrestler of the Week honors. Kind of your first signature win. How important was that win for you?
That was a big stepping stone. It was, as some would say, a coming out point, but for me, it was just a pride thing. Coaches would talk to me and say, you got this, it's just a regular opponent. And I just go out there and just continue to prove myself to everyone that I'm going to be a household name. I'm a good wrestler. You guys aren't talking about me now, but eventually you guys will. And that was just a good point to shine or outshine the rest and just have my moment.
And looking back through the stats, I'm not sure if you realize this, but 10 of your final 11 opponents before the NCAAs were all ranked at the time you faced them, including 4 in the top 10. How did facing that level of competition help you before your NCAA run?
It gave me a great feel of the top guys and how they wrestle and how I should prepare for them. What should I do? What mistakes have I learned from those matches? Not hit the same mistakes over and over again. And just to go out there and wrestle, not to get caught up and, oh, these guys are ranked higher than me. These guys already beat me. Just to go out there, have fun, wrestle, and just keep it the same mindset of scoring points and trying to put our team in a winning position.
How excited were you that the NCAAs were in Cleveland, very close to Steubenville?
I was glad to be home. I really did. I wanted a lot of my coaches and fans to come see me, and which I did have a good support system. So I was really happy that I got to see some of my old high school coaches, some of my friends came up, and a lot of family members.
When the brackets came out, you drew the number 5 seed from Missouri. You controlled that bout with ride time and won 8-3. Then in the evening matchup, you scored a 7-1 win. So going to bed that night, how excited that you were 2-0 after that first day?
It was pretty good that I made it to the second day. But that wasn't my stopping point, just to make it. I wanted to go out there and put myself in different positions, just to see if I could increase my scoring habits, not to just stay content, go out there and score. And so I felt good waking up the next morning, going in the quarters, and whoever I faced, I knew I had a mindset of I'm winning, no doubt. You're not stopping me. And then you're in my way, you're an obstacle. So I could either jump over it, which is harder than it has to be, or I could go right through you. And that's what my mindset was going in.
You mentioned the quarters. I call it the Tariq Wilson Redemption Tour. Kind of started with that. You scored a 13-5 major decision over number 4 seed Brock of Oklahoma State. He actually tech-followed you over in Italy. What led to the turnaround in your win at the NCAAs?
Definitely not getting scored on, giving up 6-point moves. I got cradled in Italy, so that was a big one. Put me down 6-0, escaping off bottom. He rode me out, turned me a couple times. So going into NCAAs, we made the adjustments right after that, not to have my hands hanging, to clear my wrists, not get them tied up, score on bottom, get out. And if we're on top, get riding time, score, maybe even get some turns out of it. So that was a big stepping stone. Coaches really put some time and effort and working on bottom, because that was one of my weaknesses. And when I get on bottom, I'd get turned multiple times. And we made the adjustments, and therefore I wasn't able to get hold down. And if I did, I got right back up and cleared my mind and just chipped away at the score.
In one of the most exciting matchups of the entire tournament, you took the eventual national champion and number 1 seed Gross from South Dakota State to overtime before you fell in the semifinals there. But you actually got in a very good shot right as soon as overtime. How close were you to getting that takedown?
I was close, but not as close as people would think. I didn't have my hands in the right position, so it wasn't as tight or the where I wanted it to be to score. And also, I was relaxed a little bit. I didn't have the urgency of scoring. I landed on both knees, didn't have the position, and then he ultimately scored and was going to win the Nationals.
I was going to say, at that point of the tournament, you were pretty much everybody's favorite wrestler in Cleveland. How great was that environment?
Oh, it was great. Just hearing friends from different colleges cheering for you, rooting for you, hoping that you do good and place or even win it. So that environment was unbelievable. I just can't wait to wrestle NCAAs again and just to feel the atmosphere. It was the best I've ever felt so far.
And you came back, you scored a 13-3 major over Del Vecchio of Rutgers, and that put you into the third place bout. You scored another major, 17-8 over Pletcher of Ohio State, and got third place. Your performance in the NCAAs had everybody talking and was just so fun to watch. I think you totaled something like 24 takedowns and only conceded 2. So now looking back a few months, how would you describe that run?
Some would say a Cinderella story, but in that Cinderella story, I wasn't crowned princess. I wasn't crowned queen. But it's all that was for me was just a learning point. This is the beginning. It's not the end. It's just a place where I can look back, see what I did wrong throughout every match, go through, correct those mistakes, even learn new technique. Something that'll give me an edge above the rest.
Even in that night session of the finals, people were still talking about Tariq Wilson, because I would say you got the loudest applause on the dance cam right before the session started. You seem to take a lot of pride in your dance moves, don't you?
Yes, dancing for me is just another way of having fun, just to see other people smile, laugh, just to have a good time. And if that makes people happy, then I'm fine with dancing. It's one of my aspects, I would call it.
The scoreboard loves you. We get you to do it here for all the marketing videos. We hope it continues. But now going into your redshirt sophomore season, everybody will be gunning for you. Does your mindset change at all this summer in knowing that you're not the underdog anymore and you'll probably be getting everybody's best shot this upcoming season?
No, my mindset will stay the same, just to go out and win. I know I have a target on my back, but that's wrestling. Everyone has a target on their back. Everyone wants to beat the guy, and apparently I'm the guy. But I'm going to just go out there, give my all, continue to do what I was doing at NCAAs and before that. Just go out there and wrestle. And if I get someone's best match, I'm glad. But if I don't, I'm still going to give it my all, just because I don't overlook anyone. I give everyone the same look. Never get too cocky. Always stay humble, and good things will happen.
What makes 133 a good weight for you?
Just my style of wrestling. I'm the taller end of the weight class, so I'm more lengthier. I'm quicker. So there's not a lot of tall, lanky guys in that weight class. So that gives me the advantage over most of the guys who are a lot shorter, stocky, not as lengthy, not as quick. But
And we have to talk about your freestyle this summer. Maybe not as upbeat as the NCAA run. You were well on your way to All-American honors and perhaps even higher at the U23 World Team Trials. But in your third match, you had to injury default. Tell our listeners exactly what happened in that match and how the recovery process has been since May.
So in that match, I scored 4, I think in the first 15 seconds. And then later on in the match, we both took a shot. He got to my legs, came up, scored behind, and I got 5'd. Eventually, that would put me out the match. I slammed my head against the mat pretty hard and ended up with a concussion. So I've been going through the process of getting cleared. I think I got cleared in June, at the end of June. Went back to wrestling for a couple days, and then I was still, when I was out, I was still thinking about wrestling, wanting to come back, wanting to participate. But as my coaches were telling me, hey, this is some time that you need. Don't try to rush it. If you rush it, you'll probably get re-injured, and we don't want that. We want you fully healed, cleared, and you don't have anything to do. We're not competing anymore, so just take this time, relax, and just get better.
You're majoring in business administration. Any thoughts on how you'd like to use that degree once you're done here at NC State?
I'd like to go into sales, marketing, but I'm also trying to get in another major of communication with media. So maybe one day I'll be a sports analyst or come in and do something that will relate to both of those majors.
I think we could use an intern for the podcast.
Hey, if you are willing, I will accept the job.
So off the mat, when you have free time, what do you enjoy doing?
Oh, I enjoy hanging out with the friends. Lately, we've been playing wiffle ball on the baseball field. My team is 2-0 so far. We always come back. We will be down 10, 15 points, but that doesn't stop us.
Dropping any names? Who's on your team? Who are the good ones?
Oh, so we have Kevin Jack. He's always giving a good run. He gets frustrated, clustered when things don't go his way, but in me, I'm calm-headed. I tell him to relax and keep his head and be cool. I've also had his little brother on my team. I've also had Jacob Camacho. He's been on my team too. He's good. You just listen. I've been playing a lot of positions. I do first base coach, give them some signals, so hope they understand. I also just support, make sure everyone's having a good time, and we eventually just with a good spirit come back.
Now call someone out. Who's the most likely to strike out?
Most likely to strike out. So we've been working with him. So it was Kellen. He struck out a lot, Kellen Devlin. But we've been working with him, and now he's hitting it. So his baton has been passed.
Total team effort. We look forward to some updates. But Tariq, it was great to finally catch up and finally have you on the podcast. I'm glad you agreed to do this after all these months. So I hope you get to enjoy the last few weeks of summer before the school year starts back up in August.
I sure will. Thanks for having me.
And I want to thank everybody for listening today. This is your Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast covering all things NC State wrestling. Until next time, Wolfpack wrestling fans, go Pack.
The Pack Mentality Pop-Ins podcast is produced by the Mat Talk Podcast Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, go to MadTalkOnline.com.